Measure passes. Colleagues, if I could ask if folks could please keep your conversations to a minimum. We still have business on the daily file. If I could ask our guests in the back of the chamber again, if you could please keep your conversations to a minimum. Let's call file item 98 for amendments SCR 35. The clerk will read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 35 with amendments by Assemblymember Bloom.
Mr. Bloom, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Senator Stone's SCR 35 is a resolution condemning anti-Semitism in California and urges all UC campuses to adopt a resolution doing the same. The amendment to SCR 35 is technical in nature. It simply removes the reference to a specific Sacramento neighborhood in order to address concerns of local residents located within that neighborhood. The resolution itself has enjoyed bipartisan unanimous support, I'm happy to report, and I ask for an aye vote on the amendment and that the resolutions go out to print and back on file. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further debate on the amendments, we can take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File items 99 and 100, we will pass and retain file item 101 for amendments SB 761. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 761 with amendments by Assemblymember Cooper.
Mr. Cooper, you may open on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Amendments to SB 761 are technical and clarifying in nature and remove opposition to the bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Waldron, you're recognized.
We support the amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion on the amendments, we can take a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File item 102 will pass and retain. File item 103, also for amendments SB 711. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 711 with amendments by Assemblymember Dodd.
Mr. Dodd, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm taking SB 711 for Senator Lois Woke. The amendment adds county law libraries to the definition of public library in existing law. This will give the state librarian the ability to work with county law libraries and help further the goal of creating partnerships among libraries throughout the state. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on these amendments.
Seeing and hearing no further debate on the amendments, we can take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The amendment's adopted, and the bill is out to print and back on file. File item 104 will pass and retain. File item 105, SB 411. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 411 by Senator Lara, an act relating to crimes.
Assemblymember Christina Garcia, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker and members, SB 411, the Right to Record Act, clarifies existing law regarding an individual's right to record police officers in a public setting. Our Constitution guarantees us all the fundamental right to freedom of speech. Recent events throughout the country and here in California have raised questions about when an individual can and can't record. Furthermore, we are in a day and age where mostly everyone has a handheld recording device. SB 411 clarifies existing law to specify that a person recording an officer in public is not in itself a punishable offense. I urge and I vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, noes 2. The measure passes. We're going to pass and retain file items 106 and 107, going to file item 108, SB 212. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 212 by Senator Mendoza, an act relating to controlled substances.
Mr. Lackey, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, Senate Bill 212 by Senator Mendoza helps protect neighborhoods and school children. It allows for an aggravated felony for the manufacturing of methamphetamine within 200 feet and BHO, which is butane honey oil, within 300 feet of an occupied residence or structure. In the past several years, federal and state law enforcement agencies throughout the state have discovered illicit drug labs in close proximity to homes and schools. The extraction of butane honey oil, also known as BHO, uses butane, a highly explosive gas, to extract hash from marijuana. These labs are on the rise throughout California. Recently, lab explosions have injured more than 70 people in Northern California, many with burns over 30% of their bodies. Methamphetamine labs are also extremely dangerous. The chemicals used to create the risk of explosions, fires, chemical burns, and toxic fume inhalation. Senate Bill 212 gives judges another tool to protect kids attending schools and residents in their homes. This bill received unanimous support, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lackey. Ms. Baker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in support of SB 212 and thank our colleague for bringing this forward. Hash oil labs are a serious problem throughout California. They are labs where criminals are extracting high-density chemicals from marijuana and are turning it into one of the most explosive threats in our communities, more so than methamphetamine labs. Just last year in Walnut Creek, a fireball caused by a butane explosion at a lab in a residential area resulted in 2 men being hospitalized in critical condition, 4 apartment buildings in Walnut Creek being destroyed, and residents from 6 other units being prohibited from returning home. At 2 of the most distinguished burn centers in the state, at UC Davis Medical School and at Shriners, 8 to 10% of the severe burn victims are from butane explosions at these hash oil labs, often with victims that are 2 to 3 years old because they're from residential areas or near schools. And so this is a problem in our communities, almost much more than methamphetamine labs. And I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this resolution, and I thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Seeing no additional discussion on this item, Mr. Lackey, you may close.
Yes, members, I think that the most sacred responsibility we have is to provide common sense protections for our communities, and this clearly is a threat that goes outside the actual labs themselves, and I urge an aye vote so that we can carry out that responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lackey. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes. Members, we are moving back to file item 95. That's SCR 34. The clerk will read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 34 by Senator Monning, relative to Childhood Obesity Awareness Month.
Mr. David Chu, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, SCR 34 recognizes September 2015 as Childhood Obesity Awareness Month. In California, nearly 40% of children are considered overweight or obese. If current obesity trends are not reversed, it's predicted that 1 out of 3 children born in the year 2000 will develop type 2 diabetes in their lifetime. For African American and Latino children, the statistic is 1 out of 2. Not to mention, for all of these children, risks of heart disease, asthma, cancer, and other significant health conditions, which will cost us tens of billions of dollars. Childhood obesity is an eminently preventable public health epidemic that can be addressed through a number of public policies and community initiatives. Please join us in supporting September as Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, and with that, I respectfully ask for your support of SCR 34.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. With that, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. We are moving to consent calendar, members. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read the second-day consent calendar.
Senate Bill 244 by Senator Vidak and others, enact relating to mobile homes.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. This is consent calendar, members. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 78, noes 0. Consent calendar is adopted. The clerk will read the remaining bills on the second day consent calendar.
Senate Bill 366.
Ayes 78, noes 0.
Senate Bill 770.
Ayes 78, noes 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 63.
Ayes 78, noes 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 66.
Ayes 78, noes 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 67.
Ayes 78, noes 0.
And Senate Concurrent Resolution 72.
Ayes 78, noes 0. Members, a brief announcement. Moving to announcements and adjournments in memory, a brief announcement that the Committee on Public Health and Developmental Services in the second extraordinary session is scheduled to meet upon adjournment in room 4202. Members, if you are a member of the Committee on Public Health and Developmental Services in the second extraordinary session, you will be meeting upon adjournment in room 4202. Members, if we could have your attention, we are moving to adjournments in memory. Members, please take your seats. Members, please take your seats for adjournments in memory. Mr. Bloom, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in memory of David B. Finkel, who passed away this week at the age of 83. David was a retired judge, former Santa Monica City Council member, a Santa Monica College trustee, and a friend to myself and many, many others in our community. The son of Russian Jewish immigrants, David was admitted to the University of Chicago at the age of 15. Both his parents were attorneys, and he followed in their footsteps, getting his law degree from USC. David worked as a civil rights lawyer for decades, advocating for freedom of speech and winning several nationally noted cases on censorship. David believed in the power of nonviolent civil disobedience, some of which he participated in himself, even getting arrested once while protesting against nuclear weapons at the Nevada test site. He also joined a courthouse picket line in sympathy with striking clerks, much to the dismay of his judge colleagues. But that's the kind of person David was. And he also spent some time sitting on the Santa Monica Rent Control Board and served a term on the city council, including a stint as our mayor pro tem. He ran for municipal judge in 1990 and was elevated to the Superior Court bench in 2000, retiring in 2002. In his later years, David taught government courses at Santa Monica College. He was elected to the college board in 2006 and served until 2014, when he announced he would step down because of illness. Judge Finkel is survived by his wife of 51 years, artist Bruria Finkel, their 3 daughters, and 4 grandchildren. And I ask that we adjourn in his memory.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Ms. Bonilla, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise to ask that we adjourn in the memory of Mary Garaventa, a beloved resident of Concord, California. Mary passed away peacefully in Concord on Monday, June 29th at the age of 91. Mary was born January 15, 1924, and lived in San Francisco before her father moved the family to Concord, where she graduated from Mount Diablo High School. She married her late husband, Silvio Garaventa Sr., in Concord in 1948. Together, Mary and Silvio had 5 children, 19 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren. Mary was a role model for her family, and also she was a role model for the community, always putting her family first and teaching her children and grandchildren to stand up with great courage for their values, for what was right, and in service of others. Mary and Silvio formed the Garaventa Enterprises in 1960, a family-owned waste disposal service in Concord, which was built on a long tradition of family-owned waste disposal services dating back to the 1930s. The Garaventa family built a successful refuse and recycling company, Concord Disposal Services, and later the family opened Mount Diablo Recycling, the largest recycling facility in Contra Costa County. If you go into their offices, you'll see the pictures on the wall that show the history, starting with one truck where Mr. Garaventa himself went around picking up waste, now to a thriving and growing family-owned business. In addition to their service to the residents of Contra Costa County, Mary and the Garaventa family have been involved in numerous philanthropic endeavors. All of their success they shared with the entire community, making sure that the quality of life of all the residents in the surrounding area benefited from their business success. Also, due to their love of the Catholic faith and the Catholic intellectual tradition, the family donated money to St. Mary's College to construct the first classroom building built since 1928, which is now named the Mary Garaventa Hall. Through the Silvio and Mary Garaventa Family Foundation, Mary has given a great deal of support for ALS research. Their support of youth and education has also continued through generous donations to local Catholic high schools, De La Salle being one, and the formation of the Concord Youth Sports Foundation. Hundreds and hundreds of children play on soccer fields that the Garaventa family have donated to the community. Mary's presence will be missed in Concord, but her legacy will continue through the work of her children and grandchildren. I respectfully ask that we adjourn in her memory and thinking of her 5 children, Silvio Garaventa Jr., Cookie Adler, Louisa Binswanger, Joseph Garaventa, and Linda Clovis. Ask that we adjourn in memory of Mary Garaventa today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonilla. Mr. Frazier, you are also recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must always rise and ask that we adjourn in memory of Mary Garaventa. I can't add a whole lot more because that was so well done by my colleague from Concord. But I have known the Garaventa family since the early 60s. I went to school with their son, Joe, and played softball with their son, Sil. Mary was a stakeholder with her husband, Sil, in Concord, and I just want our house to know that Concord was a better place because of the Garaventa family, and they left a legacy with their children who will continue to foster the good work that their parents have done. But I want to ask our house to adjourn in memory of such a wonderful woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Baker, you too are recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join our colleagues in honoring Mary Garaventa today. Her legacy as a matriarch in the Garaventa family, it reaches beyond the specific communities where they lived and all throughout the Contra Costa County area, serving and developing a family that is in great service to our community, and also just having a tremendous impact all throughout Contra Costa, in the schools, in arts programs, and really just thriving. And it is an honor to rise today to recognize her contribution and the legacy that she leaves and the great family in Contra Costa County. Thank you for adjourning in her memory today.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Mr. Dodd.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I too rise in support of my colleagues' wonderful tribute to Mary Garaventa. This family's reach spread long and far from Contra Costa County into Napa and Solano counties as well. And I certainly have known the family for many years. This woman was a matriarch not only of her own family, but I think for many, many communities. And I rise in support of this adjourn in memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Mr. David Chu, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I ask that we adjourn today in memory for Catherine Steinle, who lived in my district and whose young life ended tragically last week. By every account, Kate Steinle was an amazingly selfless and kind-hearted woman. In the last few days, we've all heard many stories from those who crossed paths with her about how she constantly put others before her. As a little girl, Kate delivered flowers for a neighbor who had broken her arm. A few months ago, she gave a brand new jacket to a homeless man on a cold night in my city. She volunteered her time with the Challenge Athletes Foundation and worked to improve the lives of athletes with physical challenges. She loved to travel because she loved to meet new people and understand the lives of her new friends from around the world. None of us can begin to fathom the void that her death has left for those who have loved her. Our deepest condolences and prayers go to Kate's family and her friends over this senseless and horrifying tragedy. And as we adjourn today in her memory, let us follow her family's wishes by remembering how Kate Steinle led her life with incredible positivity and compassion toward everyone around her.
Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to ask that we adjourn in Kate Steinle's memory. Kate grew up in Pleasanton. Her family is part of the fabric of our Pleasanton community. And Kate's passing is really causing a great deal of sadness and loss all throughout our Bay Area. And Kate was well known for being a very energetic, adventurous person, extremely compassionate and giving to others in her community. She was very, very close with her brother, Brad. They were often considered twins, even had apartments next to each other, I believe, in San Francisco. And very, very close. She was actually going to her sister-in-law's, a party for a pregnant sister-in-law where the gender of the baby was going to be announced when she was tragically, needlessly murdered. And so it is important that we recognize Kate and the contribution she made in her young life to our area, not just Pleasanton and San Francisco, but the entire Bay Area. And I also want to thank those who were nearby when she was murdered in San Francisco, those who rushed to help her, and her father who was with her and watched her die. Those who did everything they could, law enforcement and other citizens, to make sure that the murderer was caught quickly and to offer as much assistance as they could to the family. And so it's important that we remember the great energy and passion and life that Kate Steinle brought, and we recognize that in adjourning in her memory today. Thank you.
Mr. Cooley, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Colleagues, having just heard the reciting of this tragic loss, I bring you another one. I adjourn today in memory of Alden Ray Brock, 13-year-old boy who lived in my district. He was a Boy Scout and very active in scouting. Loved the out of doors. He and his father would do free diving for abalone on the North Coast. And in the way of boys, in the way of Boy Scouts, he had spent a great week at summer camp here in California pretty recently. And then in an opportunity of a lifetime, this son of Roger and Cynthia Brock, their oldest, they have two. His brother Russell is doing as the family would be doing with the loss of a family member. He had the opportunity to go to Philmont Scout Ranch and engage in a trek across that high desert country. And if you know the desert, you know that if rain falls upslope, it doesn't really absorb into the ground. And he went to sleep in a desert wash high above where the water was flowing 8 or 10 inches deep, 2 or 3 feet wide when he went to sleep. And 7 inches of rain upslope at 4:30 in the morning, a 100-foot, what became a 100-yard wide river of water, 20 to 30 feet deep, came rushing down that cavern, washed 4 kids downstream, and Alden lost his life. So this family has a tremendous hole in their heart. Of course, no parent ever imagines that you would outlive your child. He is a graduate of Albert Einstein Elementary School in Rosemont, California, in my assembly district. He was the captain of the wrestling team. He was a key ingredient of the soccer team, just a tremendous outgoing personality. You know, the sort of children that just have a radiant smile that draws people in. That was Alden. He was looking forward to starting at Rosemont High School. But so yesterday, the family had a service. It was a lot like law enforcement services, hundreds of people. There must have been 36 flags from different scout troops in the region joining to honor him. And I wanted to share that this was sort of a scouting remembrance. And in scouting, there's a song that they often sing. It's called the Vespers. And it has 2 verses. And as sort of as a part of the service, they sang this. Scouts sang it, and then the audience sang it. And the second verse is most touching on a day like today. Permission to read.
Without objection.
This is the Boy Scouts of America Vesper. Softly falls the light of day while our campfire fades away. Silently each scout should ask, have I done my daily task? Have I kept my honor bright? Can I guiltless sleep tonight? Have I done and have I dared in everything to be prepared? That's verse 1. Verse 2 was very moving yesterday. Listen, Lord, oh listen, Lord, as I whisper soft and low. Bless my mom and bless my dad. There is something they should know. I have kept my honor bright. The oath and law has been my guide. Mom and Dad, this you should know, deep in my heart, I love you so. The brevity of life is hard to contemplate on this sort of occasion for all these adjourns in memory. And yet this is a young man who, in scouting, understood the scout law, understood the scout oath, recited it weekly at his troop meetings, which opens with, "On my honor, I will do my best." And so reflecting upon Alden Ray Brock, young, but he aspired to do his best. He did well in scouting, in school, in academics, in sports. And in this tragic circumstance, he leaves a very proud legacy, and it was a great outpouring of support for the family yesterday. And I adjourn in his memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. The session schedule is as follows. Friday, July 10th, no check-in, no floor session. Monday, July 13th, floor session at noon. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves and Ms. Waldron seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Monday, July 13th at noon. Quorum call is lifted.